Greetings, shining bulls and shining bears, and welcome to this, the 14th episode of the Crypto Astrology Podcast. We are going to take a look at what this week holds for Bitcoin and Ether price. But first, please always feel welcome to check out the Shining Bull website, where I have all kinds of offerings for all suns, especially a trading signal service for day traders, a weekly forecast for both swing and day traders, also interesting for investors or fund managers, and so on, as well as, of course, predictive books and book bundle deals. And I have a new book about Ethereum layer 2s up on the website now, and I also have another new book called Bitcoin Countries up on the website. Anyway, if nothing is within your reach, then simply follow me on Twitter and make sure to get notifications for this podcast, as I give out a lot of free information on both of these. And also, thank you so much for your suggestions. I'm going to keep improving this, I promise. It means a lot to me. I will improve the production quality. I just take things slowly because I just do things one step at a time. But please definitely continue giving me feedback, because it really means a lot to me. Okay, so let's take a look at this week in Bitcoin and Ether price. Although I, the astrologer, live in Newfoundland, I am now giving these predictions in UTC time. So firstly, Sunday early morning, I forecast an upward surge spurred by drastic trading actions aiming to test an upper resistance in preparation for a coming drop, coinciding with the moon's alignment with Mercury and fortified by Mars as he enters into the Sagittarius Pada of Uttara Palguni Nakshatra. Then, by mid-morning, I forecast a sharp upward swing as Rahu and Ketu shift their nakshatra padas. However, shortly after 11 a.m. UTC on Sunday, a substantial downward trend is likely to begin, with Venus retrograding past the Sun in Cancer. Although 3 hours later on Sunday, some optimistic upward movements begin thanks to the position of Sun and Mars, by late evening I forecast a downtrend coming to the forefront due to the transits of Sun and of Moon, who on Sunday night, Moon enters into the sign of Cancer. Okay. Next, Monday, UTC. There is likely to be a surprising up move in the early morning as Moon trines Ketu, but I forecast the large part of the day being sideways or down starting in the early afternoon due to the relationship between Moon and Saturn. And by late evening, I predict a directional reversal up when Moon hits Saturn's cuspal degree, Saturn retrograding 8th from the Moon. Next, on Tuesday, UTC, it should show some policy decisions which will affect crypto market dynamics. So watch out for that. Early morning on Tuesday, UTC, a legal or policy-related decision should cause a downturn, as per my predictions as a financial astrologer. By early evening, on Tuesday UTC, I see an upward movement start due to national news from some countries. Nonetheless, a few hours later, the downtrend continues as I see it. But at night on Tuesday UTC, I see an up move or upward correction start once Moon leaves the influence of Jupiter. All right. Next, Wednesday, very early morning, UTC can show a sudden drop coinciding with some industry news, followed by a desperate bullish upward retest, or actually several desperate bullish upward retests. But then when Moon enters Leo shortly before noon UTC, I see a down move start. Next, Thursday, there's going to be a mix of dynamics. An unexpected steady upward movement can start in the early morning UTC when Moon enters into opposition to retrograding Saturn. But later on Thursday morning UTC, a substantial downturn starts when Sun enters into Leo. On Thursday late night, people and prices can turn optimistic due to Moon's trine to Jupiter, sending prices up. Friday is generally a positive day for the industry due to some constructive developments that are being made. A brief period of reduced optimism should set in though just before noon UTC, but by late afternoon the mood will likely swing back to the positive side due to policy-related news. Saturday should be volatile, but I see an important up move start in the very early morning UTC when Mercury enters into the Sagittarius Pada Uttara Palguni, bringing an understanding of the implications for crypto of some important decisions being made by important leaders. Those leaders could be in government. They could also be in the private sector. Okay, so that was the weekly forecast for the week ahead in Bitcoin and Ether price. This week is pretty interesting because a lot of the planets are traveling at the same cuspal degree, and so I really see this week being quite interesting indeed. But some very constructive things are shaping up. It's just that there's a lot happening, and also there's a lot happening as to the way that we're getting the information about all of the things that are happening, and then there's like kind of some ulterior motives. There's just a lot of things happening. So anyway, that was the weekly forecast for the week ahead in Bitcoin and Ether price. And for intraday traders, again, my signal service is the best, and my weekly forecast is also key for day traders and swing traders, and if interested, investors of all kinds. Meanwhile, my weekly forecast, it gives price points and more detail. So to give you an orientation about how the week will go for Bitcoin and Ether price. Meanwhile, my books give the larger market context, which is also important for everyone to understand, really. So now let's take a look at what I find to be some very important news from this past week. And that is that on Tuesday, August 8th, the Federal Reserve announced that whenever a state bank in the US intends to get involved with dollar tokens or stablecoins, there's a set process to follow, and the bank will need to prove to the Federal Reserve that it has the necessary safeguards in place. At the same time as this announcement, Moon was transiting with Jupiter, who rules policymaking. And just the day previous to the Federal Reserve making this announcement, Venus had retrograded from Leo back into Cancer, re-entering the last pada of Ashlesha Nakshatra. And to me as an astrologer, this shows a new understanding and acceptance coming out of the United States about the inescapability of stablecoins. And this seems important to me because of what I see in the future for Tether USDT particularly. As I discussed in the previous episode of this podcast and a new blog entry on my website where I post my news items from this podcast, but in an easy to read, easy to follow way, I foresee some serious short-term challenges ahead for the stablecoin industry due to impending legislation coming out of the United States. However, while researching my newly released book, Bitcoin Countries, available on my website, I saw some really interesting things related to both Tether, the issuer of USDT, and to the future of the United States and the US dollar. Tether, the issuer of USDT, made early investments in El Salvador's Volcano Energy Bitcoin mining project. This means that they are poised to see significant profits from this endeavor. And around the same period, Tether's affiliate Bitfinex, they're owned by the same company, acquired a license in El Salvador, enabling them to offer digital assets of all kinds in full regulatory compliance. And they are also expanding in other Latin American countries. Notably, Tether recently introduced a service for Argentinians to purchase from the Buenos Aires central market using USDT. And Bitfinex opened up some new exchanges in the region, in other countries, in Latin America. And so, considering Tether's proactive approach in building Bitcoin reserves and USDT's strong natal chart, and the fact that USDT begins a new Mahadasha of Saturn in September of 2024, I see that USDT will surpass the US dollar itself in popularity or in preference, especially in regions like Latin America, which favor the US dollar. As I discussed in detail in my book, again, Bitcoin Countries, on the website now, you can find it in the new books section. So while the US dollar is expected to remain robust until the end of Q1 of 2025, I predict that it then starts losing value due to increased money printing. I see that Tether's strategy of building up its Bitcoin reserves and mining investments now is very wise and will render it more resilient than the United States itself. Tether has the potential to become unbelievably powerful, again because it will be making USDT transactions the norm in many countries, especially in Latin America, where the US dollar is a favored currency, as I mentioned. It will also be profiting on its investments into Bitcoin mining operations in El Salvador, and I believe also in Uruguay. I also see that Tether's success will be an important catalyst for the eventual incorporation of Bitcoin reserves by the US, but that the US will take several years to come around to this, to its detriment. Very interestingly, over the coming years, I see that Tether will actually help the US maintain its dollar's global prominence in the coming years. So, although I am not a financial advisor, as a financial astrologer, I see that what Tether is up to is interesting and promising. Nonetheless, as I mentioned, I do see short-term difficulties that are quite serious for the stablecoin industry in general, as I mentioned in the last podcast episode and on a recent article on my website. In any case, if you are an economist or an investor in crypto or Forex, you may find my new book, Bitcoin Countries, quite interesting indeed, available on my website, shiningbull.com. So that's all for now, and I will see you next week.